Hey everybody, it's Kneecap here, and in this video we have an update for the disc belt for Retribution Paladins. Here we have some big changes coming out on the next reset, so if you're still doing Mythic Plus this weekend or raiding this weekend or whatever, you can still use Chargebolts, but we're going to see it's about to get nerfed very heavily on the next reset. Of course, if you're watching the video as I put it out, and you have all weekend still. So let's look at the changes really quick. Critical chain increased by 25%. I assume the amount. Static charge increased by 50%. Charge crystal decreased by 24%, and charge bolt decreased by a massive 62%. I imagine the bolt and crystal are meant to kind of line up on their damage now, and be very similar. However, probably the most important thing here is the increase to critical chain by 25%. So let's look at the belt, and also let's talk about the original video as well. If you watch the original disc belt video. So charge bolts was by far the best thing. I said use it for all content. The reality is you could have used critical chain in Mythic Plus content and probably done even a little bit higher overall. The reason I went with charge bolt, and I said it I believe in a comment, is because, or maybe I didn't say this, but the reason why I went with charge bolt as my recommendation is because it was so powerful that if everybody in your group in Mythic Plus was using this, you might skip a phase of a boss or something like that, right? It was quite powerful. That's why it's getting nerfed by 62%. But critical chain very likely would have done more overall damage for you, and you could have been using that anyways. And now with these changes, right? Critical chain 100% in Mythic Plus, and maybe in single target as well. And let's talk about that. So what they're likely doing here, and this is without this, this won't be live till Tuesday, so I'm kind of educated guessing here, is they likely try to make these all very similar. Now, they had a week of raid data, a week of Mythic Plus data, not necessarily equal Mythic Plus, but single target is kind of what they tune around, and then they do outliers on AoE stuff. So I'm guessing single target wise, these are all going to be pretty similar overall, right? And so you're technically are going to have to simulate it if you really wanted to, get into the nitty gritty. However, with charge bolts being nerfed by 62%, and then critical chain getting buffed by 25%, critical chain may actually also be used as your best single target one. Spark burst, the haste, and the critical chain overall were very similar in power. Spark burst did not get upgraded at all, while critical chain did. So it's very possible that critical chain becomes the best one for you in all content. So you go from using charge bolt in all content to using critical chain in all content. That is very likely going to be the situation. Now, 100% Mythic Plus, critical chain. However, for single target, simulate it if you can. If not, critical chain will be a very safe bet and a very safe recommendation for me to make for you, because again, it's getting buffed and it was already, fairly close. It was already really good, and the haste one didn't get touched, so it should jump in front of the haste one. The mastery one didn't get touched, should be in front of the mastery one. And so it basically is charge bolts still slightly stronger, then you can continue to use charge bolts for single target, or is critical chain now taking over? And that's kind of like where you are. Now, here's the thing. Let's say your haste is really low. Let's say you have like 16% haste or 15% haste or something, right? So you have a little bit lower haste. Maybe the haste one will be the best for you. And that's why I say simulate it, right? I can tell you what to do if you have my exact stats, because I can simulate my own character. If you have my exact stats, then just use critical chain for everything. Critical chain is very likely going to simulate the highest for everything. And of course, there's the RNG of crits as well. So you get more crits and you might just do more damage just on a lucky pull or a lucky run or a lucky key or whatever. But basically, the long story short is critical chain was buffed, the versatility was buffed, bolts and crystal nerfed, chain was already pretty close, and now it gets the buff. So you use it 100% in Mythic Plus, and you will likely use critical chain in single target. But if you can simulate this, I would recommend you simulating it, because all of our stats are different depending on how weighted of a necklace or how weighted of a ring you have, or do you have Jester's Diamond or do you not have Jester's Diamond. These things all matter, and it's impossible for me to say because the crit, haste, and mastery were all fairly evenly tuned. before this, like very similar to each other, and now the crit one gets buffed, right? And so that's why it's like, okay, the crit one's probably going to take over, but not if your crit was already super high. If you had like 40% crit already, then that might not be the case for you. So it is prudent to simulate if you are able to. Whenever you're talking about stats, that's always going to be the case. I always mention that in like the guide videos. Like when we talk about the stats of things, I give you a general order to go in, but if you really want to know, you'd have to simulate your character, and that's the case now with this belt as well. So there's a little update for you. If you just want to be safe, it's the end of the patch anyways. Just use critical chain for everything, but definitely use it in Mythic Plus. So that'll be it for this one, guys. Those do ask you to please subscribe to the channel. Helps me out a lot. Other than that, everybody, have a good one.